Hello and welcome to the clinic for week 29 and 30. It's flying by. I say that every time because it feels like we're measuring our lives in these clinics and events at the moment. It's going so quickly. But yeah, we've got some good stuff to get into today. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 check-ins to do. There's been for those of you that have had sort of personal conversations with, you know who you are. So obviously left them out of here. So these check-ins we'll be getting into. I've made notes for each check-in basically. So there's a few actions with them which I'll go through at the time, and I'll let you know that your check-in has been featured. But if you are, remember, if you're an Academy member, use your WhatsApp group for any questions or concerns that you've got about what I'm going to say. If it concerns you or you've got questions in general, use your WhatsApp group for that. And if you're not an Academy member, you can find out more in the box below. So we'll get started and we'll get into, the first one is J. So we'll get into that one straight away. So what have we got? So celebrating wins. What success have you experienced over the last few weeks? Not actually sure really. Won a couple of wardrobe jobs, one off the back of a kitchen and one that could lead into another kitchen next year. Okay. Let's dig a bit further into that in a moment. So 12 steps transition, where are you up to with this now and how are you going through it so far? Go through it on a weekly basis, making sure it sticks in my head. So on this one, sticks in your head, that's the thing that I almost, it's nice to hear that you're doing that, but it being in your head is not the thing. The thing is having it in your head and doing then something with it. So we've got to implement what's in our head. Knowledge is nothing without action. If we don't take action on the knowledge that we are collecting as time goes on, we're not gonna move the needle, because it's all right. I know a lot of things, and some of those things I have to implement, because otherwise, if I don't implement them into my own life, then we don't get the benefit. Knowing it is one thing, doing it is very much another. And I feel like, going back to the first point, celebrating the wins, not actually sure really. Well, we should be clear on this, mate. We should be clear on what our wins are. Again, the scorecard, where are we up to with that? You haven't put one on, but it's doing the stuff that's in the academy. It's doing the stuff. It's not just watching the videos, make sure it's in your head. I get that it's in your head, and but it's not in your head for recall. You're not going to get an exam at the end of it where we go, right, tell us this and tell us that. And you may pass that exam in flying colours, but if we're not doing the stuff, we're not going to see the benefit of doing it. So I feel like you need to have a closer look at this celebrating wins, because that should be clear. And again, I want to double down on the implementation and not just the watching of videos and the soaking in of information. We've got to use that information. Scorecard and cash flow sheet, saying that you're using them and you're keeping them up to date every Sunday, as I always recommend. So where are we not sure on the wins? It needs answering that, because we should know where the wins are. If we're pulling off a wardrobe job off the back of a kitchen, it feels like we need to look at this a bit closer. I could do with having a proper look at your scorecard, probably a proper chat with you, to be honest, and see where things are at since our last chat, because I know we had one a few weeks ago, so maybe another one is due. Personal growth, decided to close my roofing company down to put all my time into the kitchen company. So if that's what we're doing, then everything that I've just said is now really relevant, because if we're going to focus all in on this and not have the other distraction, I think we spoke about that last time, then the scorecard has to be bearing fruit. The 12 steps has to be implemented, not just learned. We've got to learn the 12. We've got to do the 12 steps, not just learn them. I'd rather you did it and knew it less. Do you get what I mean? And thought, oh, I just did it and it worked, because that's usually what happens. People don't overthink it; they just get on with it. So areas for support. Is there anything specific you need help with? No different every submission. It's just finding the jobs. Okay. Well, more. What exactly are you doing? And what I normally say to people is, what have you done in the last 2 to 3 weeks that has been specifically around getting new customers? what are those things? You need to list them and understand what they are, because every day, that's what the 90-minute sessions are for. They're for finding why, it's all geared to getting new customers. So we've got to be making sure that we're putting that effort in, and finding jobs. I think you need to have a chat with some of the other guys, and start connecting with some of the members, because you've been here for a while now as some of the other guys, and I think that you need to start forming some sort of an alliance to help each other. So I'll speak to you about that. So yeah, we'll have a separate conversation around that. Any major concerns? Only thing holding me back is not being noticed more. But again, this is where we've got to go back to the previous points. This is what's interesting about these check-ins, is that the clues are laced all the way through this check-in. Going through it, make sure it sticks in my head, but we need to be doing it. Not sure where the wins are. Doing the scorecard, but why do we not know where the wins are then? Do you see the contradictions here? You've closed your roofing company, you're going to focus on it. Maybe we're just in a little transition here where you're like, okay, you're a bit distracted. Maybe you're feeling like, right, I'm sorting this out. I'm trying to deal with that. And I get that these times happen. So I think it's time to double down. And again, finding the jobs. Finding the jobs is always going to be the problem. I mean, fucking hell, every business on the planet is finding the customers. It's everyone's problem. We've got to be more specific about what we're doing that's working and what we're not doing. What we're doing that's not working. That's the level of clarity that we need. What are we doing in the 12 steps? What things are we implementing that are working well for us, and what things are we doing that aren't working well for us? We need that level of clarity. So looking ahead, want to get more on board with builders. So supplying kitchens. Right, okay, so you need to reach into your group at this point and speak to us about the builders, if that's what you're getting at here, because people are having quite a lot of success. Not, when I say a lot of success, the ones that do it's like everything. The people that do it, it works for. The people that don't do it, it doesn't work for. And then, you just see what I mean? It's where you put the effort. But making relationships with builders is definitely a route in. It's 100% a route in. It's just how you go about it. So let's talk more about that, and see where you're at. If you've ever done a builders campaign, if you've ever done, the one that's in the academy. There are other things that we're looking at around the builder stuff at the moment, because there's definitely opportunities there for you guys. So speak to us about that. I think that coming out of this check-in, it just feels a bit like wishy-washy. We need more clarity. Either you're not putting enough information on the check-in and you're doing stuff we're not aware of, or you're probably not doing enough just to sort of double down on being clear on these things. But all these questions should be very, very clear. They should be clear, and the answers should be, that's it, that's it, that's it. Do you get what I mean? Like you're celebrating wins. Should know what they are. And if you're not celebrating wins, why? And these questions are there to help you reflect on what's going on. So do another check-in soon. Let's have a chat first about the builders. Let's speak to some of the other guys and see what they're doing in regards to, what I mentioned before about getting connected with some of the guys in the academy that are sort of where you are, and see what they're doing as well, and see what's working and what's not working. So we need to open some of those connections up for you. So again, I think you're making the right moves. You sort of defragging yourself by getting rid of the roofing business, which is always a good move to focus in a smaller area. But we need to double down. We need to double down on the 12 steps. We've got to get clarity on what works and what doesn't, and try things. We've got to go at it now and really implement. That's the message coming out of your check-in, is to implement stuff, not just think and watch and, stand back. Oh yeah, I get that. And, again, there's no awards for knowing it all. The only awards come when we do it. Okay. So that's that. So hope that was helpful. Again, a lot of this is just sort of shoving you down the track that you're already on. I think, again, you are moving in that direction. So I don't think it's not negative. It's just time to turn the dials a bit, mate. I think that's where I'm going with that one. But we'll move on. So next up, we've got Matt. So, right, where are we up to here? So, celebrating wins. What successes have you experienced over the past few weeks? Finally over the line with The Witch. Brilliant. Got an advert in the local magazine starting in August. Again, brilliant. You've got to try stuff. Like I said in the last check-in, you've got to try things. We can't sit there. People come into the WhatsApp groups and ask me sometimes and go, oh, should I do this? I mean, it's in the 12 steps, so do it. And I don't know if it's going to work, but what you'll find is there's plenty of stuff in there where when you get a couple of things that work for you, bearing in mind, most of you only need 1, 2, maximum of 3 jobs a month to completely change your life. Your life's changing at 2 if you're doing your pricing right. Even 1, honestly, there's people in the academy that are making a lot more money just selling one extra job a month. So, a magazine could do that for you. A leaflet drop could do that for you. Just social media could do that for you if you did it properly. This is what I mean. Like, you've just got to try stuff. So well done for doing that. Make sure that you're pushing it. I can feel you pushing. And I can sense it. Last couple of conversations we've had, you've been a lot more positive. 12 steps transition. Where are you up to with this? How are you getting on with it so far? Watched it all, got to start rewatching them. And like I've just said to Jay, it's not just about watching them, it's about doing them. It's about doing the steps and not just watching them. So, just please don't just think it's about watching and absorbing knowledge, because it's about a lot more than that. We've got to get into the habit of watching it, learning it, and then doing it. And making sure that we then implement the stuff that needs to be done in the 12 steps. So check yourself on this, go back to it and go, how, out of the 12 steps, what have I implemented? What have I implemented? Because, I think that, I might do a little worksheet actually for that. Because I feel like that's needed for the 12 steps. I'll have a look at that. So I'll send some over to you to help out with that. So scorecard, the cash flow sheet, I'm using these. They're critical to staying on track. Scorecard weekly. Haven't done the cash flow sheet as I'm still transitioning. Well, the thing is, mate, you've got to, the cash flow sheet, what you got to bear in mind here is the scorecard. So let's just go to scorecard first, because you're saying you're using your scorecard. So what I can see on your scorecard is that the effort in the top half of the scorecard isn't quite there. It is a little bit, but we need to sort of ramp it up. We need to beef this up a little bit more with some. There's something wrong with your scorecard as well, because it's saying that there's reds when there should be greens on there. So there's something wrong with the formatting. So ask us about that in your group. I mean, it looks like you're just not it looks like the bottom half, the leads and then the inquiries and proposals sent is where you're suffering. You seem to be doing stuff at the top. But again, I just think we need to up the ante a little bit here. I feel like you're getting a little bit of movement, and we just need to sort of double down again on what we're doing to try and, because you've had some okay weeks, in the past, and then it's sort of plateauing out and dipping a bit. So we need to sort of, look at what you have been doing, because clearly something's been working. You've had a couple of decent weeks. So, what was going on in those weeks when you had the decent weeks? And we need to re-engineer that and make sure that we're not losing anything that's been learned in the past. But, then again, moving forward for yourself, I know this is a transition, but I think there's a bit of green shoots in this scorecard where we can definitely see some progress. So let's just keep pushing and double down on what you have been doing, because I feel like you are making progress. I don't want to be critical because I don't feel like it's fair, but, things are moving in the right direction. I would definitely say things are moving in the right direction. Haven't done the cash flows, I'm still transitioning. Mate, you need to be doing the cash flow sheet. It is more important than the scorecard. I don't clip me on that, but it is just as important as a scorecard, because while you're transitioning, you've got to have one eye on that scorecard and one eye on the cash flow sheet. because the decisions in business aren't going to come from the scorecard. The decisions are going to come from the cash flow sheet, because you're going to turn around to us at some point and go, oh, I'm thinking about doing this, and we're going to go, right, well, where's your cash flow sheet up to? We go, well, I've not started doing it yet, because that's not going to work, is it? And the transition, think about it again. You give yourself the answer here. You've said, I haven't done the cash flow sheet yet as I'm still transitioning. So you need to be doing the cash flow sheet, because the cash flow sheet is part of the transition. What is the 12 steps called? It's called the transition. So if we don't do the stuff in the 12 steps, we're not going to transition, because you're never going to have the clarity to say, right, okay, next month I can afford to take on less labour only work and do more of this and da 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 da. You're not going to be able to make those decisions. And I know at the minute you'll be thinking, oh, there's no fucking point, because I'm just stuck doing this at the minute. Da, 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 da. But if you don't look at it and you don't focus on it, it will never improve. There's a weird phenomena about the world. I don't want to get spiritual, but what I have noticed is what you focus on improves, right? If you focus on your weight, you will get healthier. If you focus on being healthier, you will get healthier. If you focus on your scorecard, it will get better. And that's why when people go, oh, I don't like doing it because it's all fucking red and it's shit and all the rest of it. Well, if you don't ever focus on it, how are you ever going to turn it green? And the same goes for your cash flow. If you're never going to improve that sheet if you're never looking at it, because how do you know what to do next? Do you get what I mean? Like, I look at KPIs in the business, whether they're good or bad. Yeah, whether I want to see it or I don't want to see it, I have to look at it. I have to go there, because if I don't, I'll never fix the fucking problem. And it's the same for you. So you can't just sort of pick and choose and go, oh, I've won a job. So now that I know that the cash flow sheet will look nice, I'll go and do it. That's not how you do it. And that's why it's in the 12 steps transition, because we've got to start doing it even when it looks ugly. We've got to do it even when we don't want to do it. Because over time we'll go, fucking hell, starts getting better. Because I know the guys, again, it's funny how at the beginning people resist doing the cash flow sheet. And then people then after a while, when they start making sales, suddenly feel proud to go, oh, here's my cash flow sheet. Because now it looks good, they're happy to share it. But when it looked shit, they wouldn't dare. They wouldn't even admit to doing it. You know what I mean? So I think that it's not the right thing to do. It doesn't push you in the right direction. It holds you back. So you need to be doing that. You need to be doing that cash flow sheet. You need to put your overheads on it. Go to step 3 or 2 in the 12 steps. Can't remember which one it is. It might be. It's split between 2 and 3, I think. Go and do your overheads. Get to grips with where your monthly costs are, and start going through those lessons properly and get that cash flow sheet in. Because once it's in, you can start seeing how the world actually looks to you, instead of sort of guessing, because I think at the minute, if you're not doing it, then what are you doing? Because you need to be doing something. So yeah, that's what you need to do. Scorecard is making progress. You need to keep it going. You need to look at the formatting on it, because something's gone wrong with that. Maybe download it again from the academy. And if it still doesn't work for you, let us know. But the cash flow sheet is essential, because you'll never improve it if you're never looking at it. Right, personal growth, going to my first networking event next week. So big boy pants are going on. A few people are venturing into this at the moment, and I've called it before that people are going to get some success at these events. I know people are excited about them. They can be a bit cringy, but everyone's in it together, aren't they? So you just sort of laugh it off and move on. It's good for your character building, but really good. Let us know how that goes. Really, really, really happy for you, mate, because I think that's a big step for you. I think that is a big step for you. And I think you just need that injection of confidence and, to know people believe in you, and, to be able to give yourself permission to go and do these things and just get on with it, because, just think about yourself and you'll be fine. You don't worry about what other people think. It's just, this is about you. This is your business, and you need to go make it work. So well done. Areas for support. Is there anything specific you need help with right now? So you've said toying with checker trade rather than Bark, my builder, as I get no answer from 70% of the leads. Now, I don't know anything about, I know that checker trade has been mentioned quite a lot. I don't know how good it is personally. I do believe that these online profiles work differently depending on where you are geographically. But check of trade does come up quite frequently as something that people have had success with. So give it a spin. I think it was about 160 quid a month or something like that from someone else that was looking at it last week. And I was like, I don't know personally. I don't endorse any of these things because obviously as soon as I say something, people fucking jump all over me and it's my fault if it doesn't work. So I will say, always do your own research. Again, geographically, they'll all be different. Some are better than others depending on where you are in the country. We've seen that before. But one thing I'd say about it is don't look for the silver bullet. Check a trade will get you going, and I understand, but please don't see this as check a trade will sort my business out forever. You might be all right. You might get that one job a month from it, and that's all you need, to get going. But don't disregard other things. You must double down on everything. You make sure you do as much of the stuff that you can in the academy and not just focus too hard on one thing. But they're a great way to get started, these online profiles. That's where I started, and I'll always throw my weight behind them because they do work. I think that people say that they don't work. Don't do the fucking research that I tell them to do. They come back and go, "Oh, this is shit, that shit." I'm like, "Well, have you tried that one?" No, fucking just go and do your fucking research then. Do you know what I mean? And stop making excuses. So, yeah, crack on with it and let us know how it goes. That's all you can do for now. Any major concerns? Well, here's a funny one. Do you have any challenges or worries you'd like to discuss? Well, you've mentioned balancing outgoings and incoming. General business shit. I wouldn't say that's a personal thing because everyone says the same fucking thing, mate. But again, bearing in mind what I've just said to you a few minutes ago about your cash flow sheet, there's the fucking case in point. You're not looking at it, or maybe you are, or whatever. But again, like I said, I have said, check a trade. Speaking to the other lads that have said to try it, that's great. Good that you're using the community. But yeah, the cash flow sheet, there it is. Use it. I know balancing the outgoings and incomes is tricky, but we need to do it, and we need to look at how we solve it. If you help me understand where you're up to with your cash flow sheet, I can dig into it with you. I do calls with people where we'll go through the cash flow sheet and we'll look at that and see exactly what it is you need to get going. So yeah, looking ahead, what's the plan? How can we best support you over the next 6 weeks? You got the witch stuff on the website. Again, speak to us about that, the complaints policy and all that. Use your WhatsApp group for that. Yeah, you just use your WhatsApp group for that, mate. But all in all, fairly happy with that. I think you should be too. There's definitely progress. But again, when we see that little bit of movement, we want to create momentum. We don't just want to have movement and then it comes to a standstill again. But let's move on. Right, so we've got Enzo now. Let's get on to yours, my friend. So we have had a chat already. So we've talked about your scorecard and cash flow sheet and things we're doing well other than the bug that was in the sheet that we have discussed. So again, I've already given you the feedback on that, but I do want to go on. I do want to still go through your check-in for the purpose of yourself because I haven't answered the questions properly and for everyone else's benefit. So celebrating wins, so what successes have you experienced? So there's no subcontracting now for you. More office time and working on the business. Also a member of BNI now and 2 bathrooms agreed. That's brilliant. So no subcontracting work is a massive jump when you think about it. Think where you were when you first joined. You were obviously doing a lot of that and now you're doing none of it. So that's excellent. So 12 steps to transition. Where are you up to with this? How are you finding it so far? I've been a bit distant from it, to be honest, but I'll get back up to date on it. And again, what I've said to other people here is it's not just about learning stuff. Do something and implement it. Learn it and implement it. Learn it and implement it. I know you're Academy Plus, so there's a few steps in there that you don't need to look at. Obviously, blogs. You still need to send us your case studies. So make sure that you are not just, again, sitting watching the videos and not implementing the stuff. Make sure that you're doing the stuff as well. I've seen your cash flow and your scorecard sheet. Obviously, things are looking good. You're obviously making progress. A lot of it Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming away from some contracting work and, shining an example to other people really on your effort and where you've come from and where you've managed to get to in the academy, not both professionally but personally as well. I think you've made loads of progress. So personal growth, what progress have you made on a personal level? Confidence is high. I feel like I can talk more confident to people regarding the business and look at work leads more clear. Booked a holiday for the four of us. Brilliant. Well, that's always nice, isn't it? That's what we do it for at the end of the day, is to spend time with the family. Areas for support. Is there anything specific you need help with? Just really want to push on now. Feel like I've got a lot of things in place to give this a real go. I'm doing a financial overhaul this week, everything to know where I'm at. To give it a bit of a push, but could do with a bit of direction. Again, if we haven't covered that already, just make sure anything specific you've got, you stick it in your WhatsApp group. And yeah, just really good. There's not really anything I can fault. It's funny how you say you really want to push on now, like you haven't been already. It's funny how when people are successful, they never really recognise what they've already done. They're just always pushing. And when you see that trait developing in somebody, it's interesting because you sort of know where you sort of know where it's going to go. It ain't going to end up in a bad place for you if you carry on the way you are. No chance. So well done. Any major concerns? Just the stress of not having a backup plan, aka subcontracting money coming in to act as a parachute of the business, but I'm happy with the progress since moving away from it. Mate, the safety net of other people is a hard one to get round. I'll admit, it does take a while when you start saying no to subcontract work. It takes a while for your brain to accept it as like, oh, fucking hell. We've relied on that for so long. And how do we now possibly live without it? But, you're into this journey now with us, with the support you've got. You don't need it anymore. But if you are worried about it, you've got to just keep them connections open. Just drop a call in to whoever used to give you the work, let them know you're still there. Just sort of keep yourself on the radar. Don't fall off the radar if you're worried about it. So be strategic about it. Make sure that anyone that's given you work in the past, maybe dropping a call to them or an email and say, thank you for your support in the past. If you ever need help, I'll try and help you where I can. So maybe even offer. I don't know. I don't know if there'd be someone that you could bring like that. But I'm just saying, if you are worried about these things and you want to keep the doors open for whatever reason, sometimes what also can be a good way to grow your business is to keep some labour work on and say, put lads on it, so if there's money in the jobs to do it, it can be more hassle than it's worth. So you've got to be careful. But if you wanted to sort of grow your business a little bit and think, right, I could maybe keep that line open. So I could have some work here that's supply and fit and some that's labour only, and then bounce in, maybe get a lad or two around me. Is there something in these other jobs that I could step into and manage those jobs and lend my character and personality to this other business, and increase my cash flow overall and increase my profit. And they're just feeding that in, and I've got a lad on that. So I did a bit of that myself for quite a while, it wasn't really something I planned to do. It's just something that, again, when I moved away from it, and I'd still get the phone calls. Oh, fucking hell, can you help me this? Can you help me that? I'm like, oh, okay, I can't do it, but I'll speak to one of the lads that work with me. And, that's ultimately what helped me move on as well, because I'd say, right, I'd pay him, we would obviously make some on that, and then we'd sort of manage it with them. And, so it can work that, it can, it's a long time since I've done that. I don't know how the subcontracting works with these big sheds now, but I know that it will be possible, because there will be multi-fit teams, multi-man teams in these organisations that do this type of thing, because I used to do it. So that might be something that you want to look at, might not, but I think that, it's an idea to let germinate in your head maybe for a day or two and have a chat about it. So looking ahead, how can we best support you? I'd like some guidance on this. If 2 fits in the next 6 weeks and the rest of it is office and appointment time, so I have to implement new stuff and push on. Well, yeah, you do. Support we can give you. We have had a few chats away from this as well. So if you're looking at it going, well, I need X, Y, and Z, well, tell us specifically what you need. But otherwise, I think you've said it there. You need to crack on. You need to implement stuff in the 12 steps. You need to double down on your scorecard. Make sure that you're doing more and more and more of the stuff that works. Don't waste your time on shit. Give everything a fair chance, but do the stuff that works. Don't waste your time doing shit that doesn't. I know you've discussed recently other potential ways to grow your brand, and you were willing to spend money on that. So what I would probably do right now is stand back and go, what aren't you doing in the 12 steps? So, and look at that and go, have I done everything in there that I could have done? Because the money you were talking about plowing into this video thing that you mentioned, you could spend half of that on a leaflet drop. Have you done a leaflet drop yet? I don't know. Have you done a magazine yet? I don't know. Have you done, I don't know, anything else? There's loads of things you could do, but you could look at the things and go, actually, the best way to expose your brand locally is never going to be beaten by doing the local stuff. Obviously, blogs, case studies, SEO, social media, making sure you're visible, which you've done all that. Leaflets, the online profiles, make sure you're sweating them. Anything that you can get into the local area really to get your brand out and about. I know you're trying to make business connections as well, but think about what you were going to spend on that video stuff and think, actually, what could I do that's local, that's not just fancy videos and things that make me look good? Because ultimately, it means nothing in front of the wrong customer. And we've got to get in front of the right customer. And normally, when you're in front of the right customer, you don't need fancy bells and whistles. You just need to get in front of them. And that's what you sort of learn with marketing. It doesn't need to be sexy. It just needs to be noticeable. And that's all we need to do most of the time. None of the marketing we do is sexy. It's very raw. It's very simple. But we just get in front of a lot of people, and that's how we've grown our business. And that's same for every business. People over fucking complicate it a lot of the time just to look fucking sexy. And I don't think it works a lot of the time. So, right, cool, mate. We will move on. So now we've got Mindaugus, or Mr. M. So let me just note the time down. Right, mate. So let's crack on. So, celebrating wins. What success have you experienced in the last few weeks? No wins yet, apart from a small repair job through Bark. Okay, well, we'll come back to that. 12 steps transition. Where are you up to with this, and how are you finding it so far? And going through it and trying to do those tasks as I go. Good. Implement as you go. Done step 10. The video is simple and not difficult to understand. My biggest problem is that I'm doing labour only work for 2 small independent companies, which is they don't let you use the photos. One company agreed and let me ask for a review on the installation. They would like me to mention their name, but I'm not sure if it would be good for my brand. I think that as long as it's weaved into the review carefully, there's a few things at play here, and this is all about your mindset. I'm going to carry on and come back to that. Scorecard and cash flow sheet, are you using these? They're critical to staying on track. I've done them, but still need to get more comfortable with them and committed to do them regularly. You need to do them every Sunday, and you need to commit. Scorecard, you've given me a picture of, which hasn't downloaded for some reason. The file that you've sent me is not loading. Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, well, the answers are in your scorecard, mate. On 1 week, you've put £163 marketing spend and then an exact £10,000 of income that week. So I'd need to understand what's going on there. But the effort isn't going into the scorecard. I think that is the top and bottom of it. The activity isn't happening, which we'll come back to in a minute. Personal growth, more focus on building the brand. Just received branded pens and magnetic shopping list pads. Stop drinking alcohol on the weekends. Brilliant. Alcohol is the devil when it comes to trying to be successful. But again, branded pens and magnetic shit like that. Who are you giving it to? Because while it's in a box in your house, it's not any use to anyone. And these stuff like that driving a customer to do business with you. You got to think a bit differently here. We'll come back to it. Areas for support. Anything specific you need help with right now. You find more reasons not to do things. Self-belief. Again, I'm picking up on this, and we'll come back to it. Any major concerns? Obviously, you want to be more relaxed, spending money on marketing. Great, but we've got to get some money in the bank yet to be able to do that. And guidance. So looking ahead, guidance on where I should concentrate to get my first lead. Right. Okay. So I think concentrating on getting your first lead is a very, very smart thing to say. But what I've noted down here is if you think small and you do small, you win small. And I feel like you're pushing down of your own belief in your own self is making you accept such a small percentage of what you could actually achieve, because you are talking yourself out of it. You are convincing yourself that for whatever reason that it's this isn't for you, in terms of like I'm not worthy of this opportunity. I shouldn't be doing this. People won't buy from me. You know, there's a bit of that going on here that I can see through what you're saying. It's, you know, self-belief. I mean, you've said it yourself. You know, you will never outperform your self-image. If you think this of yourself, you will never go past it. So if you're, you know, and it is difficult. This, so it's not difficult, but it can be difficult, and I understand. But if you think that you're here in the world, you'll never go there. But if you want to be there, you've got to think there. You've got to think ahead of where you are right now. Because if you already limit yourself by going, well, I'm here, but your real ambition is to be there, well, how are you going to get there? Because if your brain doesn't go there first, your body ain't going to follow it. You know, your brain has to pave the way in terms of, right, that's where we're going. So I think you need to sit down and go, right, where the fuck am I trying to get here? Like, what is it I'm trying to do? And what are you willing to do to get there? I think because this is the other thing that people sometimes, you know, I don't know why this happens, but it does. But people, everyone, so when people come to me, like I've had this so many times with especially if we're going to bring someone new into the business, and we had this conversation, it's like, oh yeah, well, they really want it, they really want it, they really want it. And I'm like, well, what are they willing to do to get it? Because at the end of the day, wanting it, everyone fucking wants it. Do you get what I mean? It's like saying, there's a bar of gold on the floor, go and pick it up. Oh, but by the way, the gold's quite heavy. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to train for a year to be strong enough to pick it up. Otherwise, you won't be able to pick it up. So it's nice to look at, but you're never actually going to get it. Now, if you're not willing to do the year's training to pick the gold up, then fucking hell. Do you get what I mean? Well, you're not going to get the fucking gold then, are you? So that, as an analogy, is what I would say some people suffer with. And some people will stand there and go, well, I can't train, you know, I'm just not strong enough. I'll never be able to pick the gold up. So they fucking don't even talk themselves out of picking the gold up. They talk themselves out of doing the fucking training. Am I making sense? So if you talk yourself out of the training and you don't do it, and you're never going to pick that up, you know. And I'm using this obviously as an analogy for getting your business where it needs to be in the academy and doing the work that's required to get there. We can't get the business where it needs to be if we're not going to do the work that gets there. I can see on the scorecard not a lot is happening. You know, there's a lot of people around you in the academy that you're seeing that are making it work. Reach out to them and have a chat with them. You know, discuss how they broke through, and you know, ask us more questions, because it is a bit tricky. This, you know, I must admit, you know, it's not an easy answer for me to give, because I can't get your head and inject into it the things that need to happen to get you to do the training to be able to pick up the gold. I've given you the 12 steps. We're giving you the academy. We're giving you all the support you need. We're giving you all the tools you need. You've just got to learn how to use them. You're not putting the effort into the scorecard. So it's like you're talking yourself out of it at the very early level. It's just not like what's going on there. Like you've got to ask yourself that, why is it you won't sit down and do the stuff? Unless that scorecard is incorrect, but it looks to me like you're doing nothing. It looks to me like you're doing very little, and I can't really, how deep is this problem? Because if that's the true state of the scorecard, that there's zero zeros and there's nothing going into it, then I haven't got the answer to turn around and go, well, we're not doing the stuff. If we want the acquisition of customers, we've got to do the activity. Again, in the academy, if we don't put the activity in and we don't get that flow of things happening in the business, we're not going to get the outcomes. We're not going to get, if we're not even putting the inputs in the scorecard, we're not going to get the outputs, are we? Because that's how the scorecard is split. Inputs at the top, outputs at the bottom. And what you're saying is, I'm not getting any of the outputs. Yeah, but you're not putting the inputs in. So you've got to get the inputs to get the outputs. It's like me turning around to my team going, where's this up to? Where's that up to? Where's that up to? And they say, well, you haven't spent any money on marketing. You haven't given us this tool. You haven't enabled us to do the fucking job. So I can't have a go at them for not doing the job if I don't give them the tools to do it. And that's the input is the tools, the knowledge, the time, the money. The outputs is the customer, the sales, the things that happen in the business. And that's the same for you. You've got to put stuff in to get stuff out. And I think keeping it simple, you've got to look at this and go, what is it I need to do to get to make the time to put the work in and really look at the academy and, implement what's in there and get to a position where I'm stood in front of my first customer, because you're a nice guy, you can sell to a customer, but my worry is that you will talk yourself out of that as well. You might get a lead and then panic because you're like, oh God, someone's going to buy from me, or the pressure's on now. But the pressure's not on. You just be yourself. All this is about just being yourself and, looking at things and going, how do I get the time in the diary and stay focused on just getting these things done? And you're going to have a point here where you are doing stuff with no return. And again, I don't know you well enough to be able to turn around and say, are you the type of person that because you're going to have to put weeks and maybe months of effort in before you see something in return, are you going to do that? Because some people won't. And that is where they fuck up, because they come into the academy, and this isn't everyone, but it's been a percentage of them, and obviously they're not here anymore. But they come in going, I'm going to get instant results. I'm going to, just by being a member and just by doing these things that, at the very laziest level, I'm just it's just going to work for me, because I know, and all this shit. And it's like, no, you've got to be willing. Like anything in life, nothing ever comes easy, and you've got to be able to go through at least 2 to 3 months of really focusing on this and really putting the effort in before you start seeing the fruit. It's like you plant the seed, you got to water it, and then it'll start growing. But it looks to me like you've planted the seed, but you're not watering it. And I cannot water it for you. You've got to water it. So you've got to come back to me with something deeper on this. This is why I can't do it, or this is why I'm struggling. And I know you're mentioning self-belief, but that's maybe something that you need to speak to somebody else about that's professional, that can deal with those sorts of issues. Because there's something not right. There's something needs to be fixed. But I feel that it's something that's up here. Yeah, well, I fucking know it's something that's up here. Do you know what I mean? Because if you get that blockage cleared in your brain and get on with the stuff in the academy, it will work for you. Like people have said to me loads of times, what percentage of people in the academy make it work? Well, the ones that try, 100%. The ones that don't fucking try, 0%. So pick a crowd. Which one do you want to be in? And that's the one it'll be for you. It'll be a 0 or fucking 100. There's not really a bit in between. People either do it or they don't. Because people that don't do it leave because they go, I'm not fucking paying for that anymore. It doesn't work, or I can't be asked, or whatever. And then this is where you got to decide what camp you're in. Are you in the 0% camp or 100% camp? There isn't an in between. So again, I don't want to labour the point. I think I've made the point I need to make. I wish that was a more of a positive check-in, but we're going to get these times where we need to sort of check in on ourselves, because obviously you're wanting my feedback here. I want to help you, but I feel like you need to help yourself as well. And we need to understand why that's difficult before we can do anything else. So keep us posted. Message into your group, please. Let's have a chat about this separately, because I think there's rabbit holes to go down here that I can't go down while I'm talking to myself on the camera. So we will move on. So now we've got Matt. Let me just see where we're up to here. So we got Matt from Shawbreak. So let's get into yours, my friend. Sorry, making notes. Right, cool. Right, let's get into yours, mate. So, celebrating wins. What success have you experienced over the last few weeks? I've managed to free time and push this side of the business, and I have an extensive list of builders to campaign. Brilliant. First bathroom sale as well, even though I fucked it up. The team have been amazing. Well, I don't know all the details there, but I'm hopefully by the team being amazing that they've obviously helped you out with something. But brilliant. Things are moving on. Builders list about to start getting attacked. First bathroom sale. Really good. Smashing. 12 steps to transition way up to this. I'm watching this a little disjointed, but it's all clicking now. Yeah, get clicking, like I've said to the other guys, get the implementation of it done. It's not just about watching the videos, okay? So make sure that doesn't get lost on you. Scorecard and cash flow sheet are using these. I haven't used either, but I have absorbed it into my renovation business running. So I see the cash flow as set targets, task on Google Calendar, make sure I hit the scorecard goals. Brilliant. Well, again, as long as you're doing it, I don't give a shit where you're doing it, as long as it's happening. But it sounds like, I see what you're doing. You're not a daft lad. You're doing really well. So I've got no qualms with the fact you're not using ours, as long as you're doing something. So yeah, fine. Personal growth. What progress have you made on the personal level? I spent a long time this year buttering people up, giving away my time. Remember we discussed that, didn't we? And money, so others could invest. So time and money, so others would invest in the idea. What I've realised, not so quickly, is bollocks to them. It's a great idea, and they'd be lucky to be part of it. So sorted the serious from the sponges. Yeah, and I think what you're saying there is obviously you've tried to sell the idea of what we're doing here with us, and they're not getting it. So yeah, don't try to convince other people, mate. Ever, don't ever. The more people you tell what you're doing, the less successful you're going to be. It's fucking as simple as that. If you go around blurting it out all the time, there's a weird thing where if you constantly talk about, and I don't mean like to a close circle of people that you trust, I mean to just people in general, you fucking run out of energy to actually do it. So, talking about it isn't always good, but good. I'm glad you've spotted that, because I think it's a bit of a disease in a lot of people where they try to justify what they're doing in the academy to people that ain't even fucking successful when they're trying to be successful. And I find it ridiculous. People say, I spoke to my uncle about this, and who's your fucking uncle? Fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Like, I normally is a fucking joiner or a plasterer or someone that's like, has he got a business? Is he successful? No, he's but I trust him. Fuck off. You know what I mean? So, yeah, anyway, don't get me started on that. Areas for support. Is there anything specific you need help with right now? I feel 100% supported. Ariana sent me the loom when she was at the event on Friday, and Tom from the design team called to see how I was earlier. All this has taken away my anxiety that I had. Okay, fine, brilliant. Any major concerns? My focus has changed to kitchens and bathrooms. Now my main concern is trusting people to deliver my standard work, and financially how long I can hold for it to sustain itself. So I need you to explain that one a little bit more. Just on this financial side of things, because obviously I've got no detail here, no cash flow sheet, anything like that. So do come back to me on that and explain that in more detail. Yeah, trusting people to deliver the same standard as you is, but there are good fitters out there, mate. There are good people fitting for the sheds and people like that. So there is people out there. It's just a matter of finding them, and we do talk about that in the academy as well. And again, if you need some specific help around that, I think this particular section here, there's any major concerns, but I think you need to dig in. You need to give us more on that in the WhatsApp group so we can discuss that in more detail. Yeah, just want to make sure that you're feeling fully supported there, because I'm just feeling that on this here, I can't really read that what exactly it is that you need. Yeah, let's have a chat about that. Use your WhatsApp group for that, please, mate. Looking ahead, what's the plan? How can we best support? Keep on doing what you're doing. The rest is on me. Great. Taking accountability, but do lean on us where you need to, mate, because again, it can be a lonely place. You know, it isn't always fun and games, is it? You know, there's a lot of stress attached to this, and we need to make sure that you are feeling supported at the same time. But do come back to us on the things I've mentioned now, okay? Right, let's move on. We've got Everton next. So, celebrating wins. Landed my first landed my first private project using the KBB system and taking a deposit for the project. Brilliant. Love it when people make the first sale. It always feels good. 12 steps transition. Hit a stop due to a lot of stuff going on and a mindset thing, making time issue. I did send you the last Facebook Live where we debriefed the event. And I want to stress here the importance of watching these clinics and watching the Facebook Lives, either live or later. It doesn't matter. But we do cover a lot of stuff on these lives. And I think that staying in tune with it it's really interesting. You know, that the people that make the most sales in the academy are always the people that are on this Facebook Lives, and it's always the people that watch the clinics, and it's always the people that come to the events. It is not a coincidence, these things. There's not a coincidence. So we've got to start. What I would say here is that we need to see more of you on the lives. You might be watching them, but the stuff in here that I'm going, if you'd watched the last Facebook Live, I think you would have felt a bit better about where, you know, you would have had more insight on that. And again, I do love the check-ins, and it's good for you to do anyway, but I feel like, you know, we need to see more engagement in terms of making sure that you're staying close to us on the clinics and the lives and the events and all that stuff. If you want to go to the level of other academy members, that's what I'm assuming you want to do. And I can tell you that the most successful guys, they have habits, and one of them is watching these and making sure that you're on the live streams, because I'm always keeping your brains moving, you know, and that's what you've got to see it as, is that, you know, it's important for you to just have that nudge every week, you know, make sure that I'm keeping you moving. So I think you need to just make sure you're doubling down on that. Because again, the mindset thing and the shit going on at home and all that bollocks, whatever it is that's stopping you, it will always be there, you know, and you just need that other influence sometimes. It's like, right, come on, keep going, you know, because you have to, you can't fucking stop. And if you can't stop for long anyway. Scorecard and cash flow sheet, again, not using these properly. So again, you know, we're going to see these issues, mate. We're not in line with what we're supposed to be doing. Again, the stuff that we're putting out for you in the academy is really important. And again, when I see people not engaging and not using the tools, again, we see the problems start. So all I can say at this point is we need to see more of you. We need to get you using the 12 steps. We need to get you more involved in the streams and the events and stuff like that. Personal growth. What have you progress area on a personal level? I'm working out regular now, and you signed up to London to Brighton bike ride. Brilliant. I remember years ago I did a bike ride from Cardiff to Torquay. It was over a few days because it wasn't a very well organised thing. It was a long time ago. It wasn't professional whatsoever. I'm not going to go into details what happened on that trip, but it was a long fucking bike ride anyway, and it was very stressful. But I'd assume this is going to be a bit more of a professionally organised thing. And well done, because these things, you know, you need a focus outside of work. You need something to look at. Yeah, and they do help. You know, this will help you massively. Just your headspace and achieving something. You know, your brain achieving something will be massive for you. I do feel like you're going in the right direction, mate. I just feel like you need a little bit of a tick over there. You need to just push into line a little bit more and just stay a bit more, you know, within the academy the recommendations that we give you. I mean, we can't force you to do stuff, but we do know what works and what doesn't. So I do worry that if you drift too far out the lines, you end up gone. If you stay within the lines, it'll work for you. And I feel like you're there, but we just need to sort of straighten it up a bit. So, areas for support. Is there any specific you need help with right now? How to fit in all the family work, building a business and brand, and keeping sane. So, what I did, for somebody else, you know, and it is just basically, it is difficult, you know, how to fit it all in: family work, building a business, keeping sane. This is a symptom of someone just trying to better themselves and be successful, mate. This isn't like, oh, I've got a problem that no one else has got. Everyone's got this. I've got that problem. I could write exactly that. I could sit down with a coach now and go, and if he said to me, what's your biggest issue? I would say the fucking same thing, because this is what it is. You know, we've got families, we've got a business, we've got to stay sane. You know, it's difficult. When you're trying to better yourself, you know, this country, unless you want to sit on your ass and have benefits, it's difficult. You know, it is, and it's difficult everywhere. The world isn't an easy place, is it? Let's face it. But what I did do is, I'll send you something that I sent to somebody else, and it was a bit of a weekly like agenda and a bit of a reset. So I think he's very similar to you here. So I'm going to send that to you in a bit. So I'll do that. So I'll make sure that I do that, because I think you'll find that quite useful. I won't go into loads of detail here now, but there's just a few tips in there with like health and your agenda and your routine and all the rest of it. So I'll send you a little note on that in a bit, and I'll ping it into your WhatsApp group. Any major concerns? Obviously, there's a few things going on there, and you know, I'm not going to read them out, but you need to. I think you need to give yourself a little bit of space as well, mate. You know, I think you need to sort of just fucking decompress. Yeah, and I think this thing that I'm going to send you is going to be quite helpful for that as well, because you just need to fucking take the temperature out of your head sometimes, and not overly push yourself when not at times like that. Anyway, you know, you do need to give yourself a bit of time there just to fucking let your system settle, you know, because your brain and your body aren't always in sync with each other. So your brain and your nervous system, you know, if your nervous system is, your brain will be overstimulated and you'll be storing trauma in your nervous system. So you know, you need to sort of take the moments to breathe and relax and let things decompress, because if you don't, you'll end up in a much worse place. So I think if you can do it, try to spend a little bit more time at home for the foreseeable. Try to just not put yourself under too much pressure. You know, there's a lot going on there, fucking lot, mate. So, you know, do what you can to manage the business and keep the business sort of at the minimal level where you can just get by. And you might feel like, well, fucking hell, even that's a lot. And I understand that that's, you know, not always possible to completely take the sting out of it, but do make time for home, especially for the next few months. Looking ahead, what's the plan? How can we best support you over the next 6 weeks? You want to join the Plus if you don't have time to do the blogs and the case studies, but yeah, just do that then if you can. That will help your brand move forward. Again, the guys here, there's loads of stuff coming in there. So again, if time is an issue, as I said on the last Facebook Live, the KBB Academy Plus is going to be a huge thing for people to get some time back. We're really excited about KBB Academy Plus. It's quite a big rollout on what we're doing, because there's so many things that we've added into it. But yeah, it's going to be transformational for a lot of your businesses. It really is. Right. So yeah, there's stuff in there. I've got some notes to ping some stuff into you, mate, and I'll get that done later. Okay. So we're going to move on. So now we have got we've now got Jacob, who's put a check-in in for us as well. So, right, let's get on with it. So, celebrating wins, what successes have you experienced over the last few weeks? Obviously, we spoke about some of the stuff at the event anyway, the stuff that you're struggling with. And you've also started getting your head around bits with the CRM. But there's still a lot to learn with the CRM. Yeah, there is, but get your head, please focus in on that and don't just half do it. Make sure you do it properly. You've opted for KBB Academy Plus. Obviously, you'll get all that shit added. Yeah, there'll be loads of stuff in there. And obviously, you came to your first event. So there's quite a few wins in there. You've got the stuff that you've mentioned at the event that you're dealing with. That's great. You've got your head around the CRM. Keep going with that. You've got your KBB Academy Plus lined up and you've been to your first event. So the signs there are very, very positive because that is all the signs of someone that's going to be successful in the academy. As I said plenty of times, these are signs that someone's going to do well. 12 steps, you're not really looked at it. So there's a slap on the wrist for you because you need to. Again, if you've been watching the rest of this video, I don't want to be a broken record, but if you're only tuning in for your own check-in, then I've said to a few people today that they need to not just look at the 12 steps, they need to implement it. If you're not even looking at it, don't think that these are the things that you're signing up for, Academy Plus and all that stuff, is going to be the route out of doing the 12 steps, because it's not. The 12 steps is the business building Bible that you need to be reading and implementing and making sure that you're practicing, like a religion, because if you don't, your business ain't going to build. Simple as that. So please don't skim over the 12 steps. I think it's not important because it really is. Scorecard and cash flow sheet. Are you using these? They're critical to staying on track. No, but I will want some away from subby work. Incorrect answer again, because the transition, again, because you're not looking at the 12 steps, you're not seeing the importance of the scorecard and the cash flow sheet. Because in that 12 steps, if you start in the 12 steps and go through it, you're going to understand why they're important. And then because you're not looking at it, you're not understanding why they're important. Now, you can't just say, when I get to this point, I'll start doing my scorecard. It doesn't work like that. You've got to start doing them now, because that is what aids the transition to where you want to be. You're not going to transition magically and then start doing stuff. It's like, no, you need to do stuff when it feels pointless, but you do it anyway, and then you start to see the progress. Ask anyone that's successful in the academy. Everyone, even when it was shit, did the scorecard and the cash flow sheet. Even when it was terrible and they were still working for other people, they did it and they kept doing it, and now they're in a much better place. So you cannot pick and choose when you do these things. You either subscribe to be successful in the academy or you don't. You can't miss the 12 steps and you cannot miss the cash flow and the scorecard. You just can't. You're not going to get there if you do those things. So there's your slap on the wrist for those things. But now you know, and please crack on with that and put those 12 steps videos and the implementation of the stuff that's in those videos, not just watching them, into your 90-minute sessions, and work your way through them and get everything that's in them 12 steps set up. Obviously, you've got KBB Academy Plus, so there'll be some steps in there that won't be relevant. So they will be relevant. You still need to know them, but you don't necessarily need to implement them, because obviously we'll do some of the bits for you in there. Blogs, case studies and stuff like that, and SEO, but you still need to know these things. You still need to know what we're doing for you, because you need to know what you're paying for as well. So personal growth, reduced your subby works, give you more time and caught up to manage things better. Also got the van wrapped, smartened up, so it looks nice and brilliant. Visibility, again, in the 12 steps we talk about making your business visible. So there'll be more you can do there that's not that expensive. You've reduced your subby work, great, but I am a bit concerned that you're reducing your subby work and you're not got your finger on your scorecard and your cash flow sheet. So how do you know that financially that's sensible? This is where I can't help you as much as I'd like to, because I haven't got the tools. You're not using the tools for me to do that. So I need to be careful what I advise you to do if I haven't got the dashboard to look at. Areas for support, is there anything? Just keep me guided and focused on track. I just told you that the 12 steps is what you need to be really digging into. So you'll have me there every morning or night time when you want to watch those videos and you're doing it. But again, I can feel a wave of positivity here. I can feel that you're feeling positive about these things, but you've got to ride it often you've got, when you create that momentum in your brain, it's like, right, let's go. And then you've got to now mirror that with action in the real world. Yeah, because that momentum's not going to go on its own. KB Academy Plus and all that's not going to push your business on its own. You've got to get in the 12 steps, get the cash flow sheet and the scorecard done weekly, and these things, and keep moving at. And both of this reality of the positivity and the real world action will move together in tandem. You know, because if you just think this positivity is going to push it on its own, it's not. The reality's got to move with it. And I feel like we need to get connected before you have a high and then a low, and then you come back to us going, oh, well, why is that? And then we have this conversation of, well, you haven't done the scorecard, you haven't done the cash flow sheet, you're already reducing your subby work, so you fucking should be doing them 100%. And even if you're not, you still should be doing them. The 12 steps, do you see what I'm saying? So don't let this derailment happen, please, because I can feel it. I can feel the positivity, but I can also see the dip if we're not careful. Okay. I remember what we said at the event about that. Any major concerns? I'll speak to you separately about that, what you said in there. I'll send you a note on that later. Looking ahead, what's the plan? How can we best support you over the next 6 weeks? 2026 is my year, going to smash it out the bag. If you do what I've just said, that is absolutely true. If you don't pick up that cash flow sheet, the 12 steps and the scorecard and start dedicating time and effort into that, 2026 won't be your year. Not in the academy anyway, because no one in the academy that's doing well is missing those things out. There's not really. I mean, a couple of people wing it. But what's interesting, and this is where you've got to be careful, because some people will turn around and go, well, I don't do a lot of that as much as I should, and I'm still making sales. But those people are not profitable. And that's true. Because there is people in the academy that are doing really well in terms of making lots of sales, but they ain't fucking making money because they're not following the proper steps. Now, we can't force them to, but the ones that are doing well and making money are following the proper steps that we put in. So don't be in the camp of looking like you're doing really well, but really you're not making any money. Make sure you're in the camp of doing really well and you're actually doing really well because you're doing really well. It's not bullshit. And don't get me wrong, there's not loads of people in that camp, but there's a few, there's a handful. Most people are doing it right, but there's a few that sort of wear the badge of honour of, I'm busy, so I've got loads of sales, I'm making sales, I'm big dick, but you're making loads of sales because your prices are too fucking low and you're not making any money. So you're getting loads of customers saying yes, but really it's fucking wasting your time because you're not really running your business the way we tell you to. And don't get me wrong, they're catching on, they'll get it in the end, and they're not going anywhere and they will learn, but don't fucking start in that camp and then have to move over here. You only start in the right camp, and you're at a point here where you've got the opportunity to start off well and carry on as you start as you mean to go on. So brilliant. Right, there's some really good stuff in there again this week. I'm really enjoying these check-ins at the moment, and well done for sending them in and being honest. I think there's the thing that comes out of this for me is that the level of honesty and the connection we have as an academy and academy members is obviously very tight. And I think that I appreciate and respect the honesty of people that come on and say what they say, because it takes a lot to do it. And I've been a bit harsh today with a few of the points that I've made. But again, I'm not here to wipe your ass and make you feel good in terms of tell you what you want to hear, because that's not any fucking use, is it? What's the point? If I'm going to tell you what you want to hear, then I'm not helping you. Sometimes you need to hear the tough things, and there's been a bit of that today. So again, let's move on past it, and let's take the positives and the negatives together, and let's look at it and go, there's learning in this for everyone. Everyone, it's a battle. It is a battle. It's not easy. And it's not meant to be easy. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it, and everyone would be stealing your dinner. But at the minute, the only person stealing your dinner is probably yourself. And that's true about all of us. I'm not throwing mud. I'm just saying that it's always a battle. There's always a challenge. There'll always be a challenge. But we just got to grow to be able to take that challenge on and not feel like it's a big deal as much as it was anymore, But we're not going to dig in, and we're not going to grow as people and get more resilient and more confident if we don't dig in. Okay? Right. So well done. Speak to you all later, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.